This right here is a smile that needs protecting. Seriously. So the spring of anime 2018 may be kicking off with a bunch of new anime coming out today, but that does not stop series that started in winter of anime 2018 from showing that it is still here and it is still very, very good. I'm gonna go on a limb here and say that this is my favorite episode of Darling in the Franxx. It's my favorite. Not gonna lie. And the reason why I say that is because of the characterization, the answers to the questions I've had, and more questions we get, and some of the world building as well. This is an absolute fantastic episode. And I dare say that I actually think this is probably my favorite episode of today, of all the anime I have watched. I watched quite a few, actually, and I will have other videos up, but I'm just gonna say right now that this, I really enjoyed this. I loved just seeing why 02 acted like she did earlier on in the series, and why she continues to act like she does. It makes so much more sense now. And I mean, all of the callbacks in this episode, when we see Hiro say certain things to 02, when we see how, he, reads the book and all that, finds out that the book is very, dark and depressing. I mean, there's just so many little things that you can get from this episode that is just callbacks to the previous episodes of the series, and you're like, oh my god, these parallels. And the picture I just showed, shout out to one of my friends, he actually supplied me with this picture, thank you so much, I do appreciate it. So to dive right into it, I'm just going to say right now that I especially love how in this episode it clarifies that 02, she does remember. She does remember the original Hiro, the Hiro that met her on that snowy day, and she now is trying to find her darling. There's a lot of things that are answered. Number one, we get an answer to why 02 was like, oh, I thought you were dead. When she said that to Hiro in episode 1, it is clarified now because of this episode. She thought Hiro died. When he got hit in the head and all that, and he went to the ground, she assumed he died because she never saw him again. And, you would assume automatically that he's probably gone. After some time passes, you probably think, like, yeah, he's probably dead. And so when she met him again, it's like her whole entire life brightened up once again. And then we get the reasoning to why she has an obsession with sweet things, or in this case, honey, is because of the candy that Hiro gave her in this episode. And I'm just like, yo, just these little connections to what led her to be like she is, or her overall phrase for darling, why she calls Hiro darling, is because of the book, the picture book story that she had and held on to her since the very beginning, since she could really remember. She got certain words or lines or how she views the world from that book, and it just says a lot. It clarifies so much. And here's another thing I wanted to point out to all of you if you were unaware. At the end of the episode, in the ending song, there's something very important. Very, very important that pops up. And if you did not watch the ending, sequence of the episode, I recommend you stop this video and go watch it. It's incredibly important, actually. The entire ending song was replaced with visuals of the picture book and explaining what was going on within the picture book. And it's very, very sad. I'm just gonna say there's a lot of symbolic meaning there, a lot of metaphors and everything that's happened in this series and what could potentially happen, and it's just beautiful. It really makes me appreciate Darling in the Franxx even more now after seeing something like that added in. And I know for a fact many most likely might have missed this, like this ending part of the episode, and I recommend you to go watch it because it is important. Now, if you don't have time, I understand, but if you ever do have time, go out of your way and at the very least watch the ending segment for you can kind of see why, Hiro even said that the book was very sad. Now, to get right into it, the entire theme of the book, in a way, is kind of like a spin on Beauty and the Beast. It's a little bit of like a reversal, in a way, since 02 is more of the Beast, and Hiro is the Prince. And normally in the Beauty and the Beast type story, you have it to where the prince is the beast, while the princess is this beautiful girl. It's a common thing we have seen in literature, and we've seen this in Beauty and the Beast movie that was made by Disney. And when you see this story, Zero Two is supposed to be represented as this monster, this thing that is not human and nobody should be able to love at all. And, you know, we have it to where Hero, he's represented as this, you know, beautiful prince that is trying to, you know, find a way to fall in love with the monster, and the monster's wanting to be accepted or be like the prince. And I just like the reversal of the story, and how Zero Two, why she thinks she's a monster, is because of the entire exchange she had with Hero. So let's get right into that. So we get to see a very, I gotta say, lewd scene in a way. I mean, Hero licked Zero Two's blood. And obviously her blood was blue, and it's very similar to Klaxosaur blood that we have seen time and time again, and so that's kind of obvious her blood would kind of look like that, since we already were fully aware that she was like, you know, half monster, she was a Klaxosaur. But when she got to see Hero's blood, when it popped up, she realized that her blood was very different. Her blood color was different, and she automatically realized that she was not like Hero. She was a monster, and now we understand why she views herself like that, why she tries so hard to try to not be a monster, why she wants to be human, why she wants to look normal, is because of that entire moment in her life when she saw Hero's blood. And it's sad, but also with the blood scene, we also get a reason now to why Hero is so different and why he was able to be compatible with Zero Two all along. Now, I don't know how many noticed this, but when Hero was licking Zero Two's knee, the blood and all that on it, that in a way changed him. Because we know for a fact his, you know, yellow blood cells and all that, they were very high. Very, very high. And I think at that moment, it kind of changed his body. It kind of went into his body, it changed him, and it made it to where he was able to properly adjust in a way to whatever would happen in the future. And that's probably what made it to where he wasn't really compatible with anyone else anymore, and why he was perfectly compatible with Zero Two. Now, the reason why you had that weird, like, tumor pop up on his body was because he actually, you know, he was adjusting. He already had, like, the start of it, like, the start of that tumor already probably forming in his body, but Zero Two, she progressed it at a rapid rate after he started, you know, being compatible with her, and he was, you know, in the Frank with her. It made it to where it sped up the process quite a bit. He was already fully going to be going down that path of what happened, but like I said, Zero Two sped it up. So now we got clarification why Hero was so different, why he was not compatible with anyone else, and why now he is compatible with Zero Two. So I like that little tidbit. But let's get into one thing that was quite surprising. Actually, there's quite a few things that are surprising with this episode, but one thing that needs to be mentioned is that Dr. Frank, he is not a good man, by any means. Now, he potentially could be playing the long con, a big, long game of chess to where he might be wanting to betray Papa and all the adults and all of them to where he can make a new world or something. For all we know, he could be putting on an act. But for now, though, with this episode, from what we got from him, he is definitely not a good person by any means. Before this episode, many were saying that he was going to be like the guy to lead the children to a new life, a new world, to be able to have a better life. That's what everybody was saying, even myself included, I was saying that. But after this episode and seeing what he was doing to Zero Two, it's clear as day that the man, he's very twisted. A very twisted individual, especially putting Zero Two in that type of environment and doing that to her, like literally tormenting her. It's horrible. And now we could say that he is definitely not a person that is probably an ally. Most likely, he might not be fully sided with Papa and all of the adults at the top, but I believe what really drives him is like what drives a lot of scientists or mad scientists. They want to know things. They want to do everything for the sake of an experiment. And so, you have it where some scientists, they cross that line to be able to research or find out new discoveries. And I feel like that's kind of what Frank's character really is. What it's about is that he might not be on the adult side, but everything that's going on now in present time, he just wants to see what happens. That's the whole reason. He just wants to know. And if that leads him to eventually becoming a part of the good side, it happens. But for now, though, I think he's just, as a scientist, he's doing what scientists do. He wants to know. And so, like I said, even if he turns out to kind of be on our side, he's not a good person at all. Now, speaking of him and what he did to Zero Two, now we understand the reason to why Zero Two does not want to take any test. Why she's just so hell-bent on not being put into, like, a test room or anything. It's because of what happened in her past. What the scientists and all of them did to her. I would be traumatized too. I would not want to go into a test facility or anything like that if that happened to me. So, it makes a lot more sense now. It wasn't probably as extreme as it was in the past. Maybe the tests that were already done to her. Maybe the test that she was going to take was probably very mild or not really bad at all. But the thing is that it traumatized her. She didn't want to go there anymore. So now we understand why she always acted like she did. Now, next thing to really talk about, let's also talk about the fact that Hiro, he was the exact opposite in this episode compared to how he is in present time. Now, we do know that Hiro has made gradual changes as a person ever since he linked up with Zero Two, and he has now officially found a partner. We know that he's become a little bit more open, a little bit more lively. He just seems very different to how he was in the first episode of the story. But in this episode, we see an entirely different Hiro. Now, we have heard many characters mention that Hiro was very different in the past. He was very lively. He always seemed like he was in charge and all that, like he was leading everybody. He just seemed like a natural-born leader that, you know, just was helping everybody out. And we finally get a real good glimpse at how he was. He was someone that was just very open. He always was questioning things around him, like how a child would be. If you're a child, I remember when I was young, and I was constantly asking questions like, what's this? What's that? You know, why does this do that? You know, I remember asking a lot of questions. I think many of us can agree when we were growing up, we asked a lot of questions. And in a way, Hiro's character was perfectly representing what a child should act like, and he was very bubbly about it, and he also noticed that some things were a little bit off as well around him, while the other children, they knew something was wrong, but they didn't go out of their way to question things, which went completely against what a child really should be like, which shows the difference between Hiro and the other children. All the other children, they didn't care. They knew that, you know, people were disappearing left and right, but they didn't care to ask the adults. They just obediently obeyed everything that was, you know, directed towards them, and they carried on. And Hiro wasn't like that. So Hiro automatically shows how different he was. He was acting like a true human child, while everybody else was obviously, you know, manufactured. Which, that gets into the next point I want to talk about. I already briefly talked about this in my last episode review, but it is very apparent that our main cast of characters, or the children, the parasites, they are not real humans. Like, what I mean is they are probably test tube babies. They are probably clones, manufactured humans, whatever they may be. They are definitely not normal human beings. The way their upbringing is, the way Hiro only knew the walls around him and all this, the way they're experimented on, it's clear that they're not proper children. They are probably made like they are to be able to protect the adults and everybody. So, yeah, that is something I want to point out. And most likely, since Frank is wanting to do a whole new experiment with, you know, Hiro, maybe he made him as close to identical as a human child as possible to see how he grows. I mean, he even mentions he wants to see where he develops and what decisions he makes. So that could be potentially why Hiro is so different, is because he was meant to be like that. It was just as a test. Now, like I said, if Frank turns out to be a good dude or not, that is left to be seen. Okay, now, with all that out of the way, let's also talk about how Hiro might actually lead the charge now of rebellion. So, with him now remembering everything, with him remembering, like, Zero Two, and saying, like, you were the girl with the picture book and all of that, but the girl that I escaped with, you know, he mentions this at the end of the episode, and you see Zero Two turn around very slowly, and you just see the look of shock and all that on her face. It does let us know, as the watcher, that Zero Two had her suspicions that maybe Hiro was the person she met, but she gave up hope because he wasn't remembering. So she probably assumed that it wasn't the same person. Maybe at the beginning, for the first, like, quarter of the series, or first half of the first half, maybe she thought it was the same Hiro, but then she's like, probably not, since he doesn't remember. That's probably why she constantly said certain things that mimicked what Hiro said in this episode, was because she wanted to get those memories back for him. But he couldn't remember, he doesn't know, so she probably just gave up hope. And with him waking up like that and saying that to her, it's gonna spark everything back. She's gonna, you know, be like, oh crap, you know, this is my darling, this is the person that, you know, was there for me, the first person that was really kind to me, well, actually, second person, which I'll get into that in a second, but I mean, she just started to show this look on her face, like, of shock. So I believe with Hiro now waking up like this, it's going to probably progress the plot to the point to where he probably wants to break away from Papa and all of the adults. And what I mean by this is that Hiro, a while back, he had a question asked to him by 02. 02's like, you know, I can get you out of here. I can break you out of here and all that. And that's kind of what Hiro did for 02 when she was younger. And most likely he's going to take her up on that offer. He's probably going to break out of the facility with, you know, the FranXX and all that, and actually probably start a new life. Now, I know for a fact all of the characters are probably not going to be on board to be able to just leave the world they know, because most of these children, they look at Papa and the adults as like these godlike figures that provide everything, and some of them relish the fact that they're getting to protect the adults. Zormi is a very good example of that, but with the recent things that's happened to him and how he was told certain things which were cut out in recent episodes, we didn't get to see the full thing. We do know that Zormi's kind of shooken up a little bit. He's found out that there is some obvious differences going on here, weird things. So, I mean, a lot of the children, I believe they're probably going to take some persuasion, but they'll probably join Hiro in the end just because they'll realize that all their lives are on the line. And I believe that's what's probably going to happen. Now, speaking of the first person that was really nice to 02, this one, I don't really know how to feel about it, because it's kind of hinted at the fact that the person that gave 02 the picture book died. That's the thought process I was having when I saw this scene when she gave the picture book and eventually she just faded. Like, you just see her crumble like ashes and she was gone. And 02 says that was the last time she ever saw her. My first thought was like, she's dead. Like, she just got killed. And we don't really know. We don't know what happened to her. We don't know if she legit died or if she got sick because she was near 02. I mean, we don't really know. We do know that if these characters are around the adults and stuff, they get very sick and all that. We've seen this with Zormi. So, I mean, we don't know. Maybe 02 got her sick and she died, or maybe she was completely killed because of, you know, the adults didn't like what she was doing. For instance, giving 02 a picture book, trying to treat her like a normal human being or something, which that automatically just stands out to me. Everything we've already seen from the adults, especially with the hinted at mother for Zormi, she basically abandoned her child. She was like, screw you. It just abandons Zormi like it was nothing. Because, like I said, it was implied that they were mother and child, but mother and son, and yeah, that happened. So, what makes this girl that was in 02's past very different from Zormi's apparent mother? What's different there? What's going on there? Because, from what we know, they don't really have proper emotions. They lack empathy. They have to hook themselves up to these machines to really feel anything. So, what happened there? Why was that woman showing some different side to her than the other adults that we have seen that obviously don't care about the children at all? I mean, they even were starting getting really upset with, you know, Hiro when he was asking questions, like more and more questions. You know, they were getting very annoyed by the questions that, you know, Hiro was constantly asking. So, what makes that woman different? Was she killed off because she was different from everyone else? Was she, did she just disappear and run away? Did she die of illness because she was around 02? There's a lot of questions I have, but if there is one thing I will point out, is that maybe they might have axed her because she was showing signs of being like a normal human being. Who knows? Now, with that being said, I want to talk about the point that happened right at the beginning, like something very important, and that was the mentioning of the merging of minds and personality. So right when the episode started, it's mentioned that 02 and Hiro, their minds are kind of like merging, their personalities and all of that, which implies that they were about to become an official Klaxosaur. Now, remember what I've been saying for a while now, that most of the Klaxosaurs, most likely, are children, the parasites, and most likely the end of the road for them is turning into Klaxosaurs. And so all this time, they've been fighting their own side. For instance, they've been fighting other parasites that have turned into what they are. Now, we didn't know, there was no confirmation, but with this episode, it kind of clarifies that, at the very least, the pistol and the stamen, they do become one and probably turn into a Klaxosaur. And that most likely is what the cores are in the Klaxosaur. That is the pistol and stamen forming together to make a bond. And that's what we most likely were seeing going on in this episode with 02 and Hiro. So food for thought. That does make you think. It makes you think that, like, okay, so obviously the adults must know something about this, then why are they continuously using parasites even though they're turning more and more into their enemy? A lot of questions, but I want to end it there. Overall, great episode of Darling in the Franxx. It was by far the best episode yet, and I cannot wait for the next week's episode because this had me wanting more. I mean, just seeing cute little red 02 and all of that, I'm like, oh my god, so cute. And just seeing how she had this smile on her face, it was just so innocent, and I do hope that she could go back to smiling like that when everything is said and done. So with that, I want to leave it at that. I love you guys. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like, and I love you guys. Please be safe. Chibi out.